Uzi is the last man alive, but he's being chased down. Killer
Oh
Instinct
my God!
flashes into the pit. How is he still alive? Uzi is doing it. Allowing Tentacle and Barrett finish him off.
What's up, everyone? Zyrene here. This week on The Breakdown, we're going to look at the last two team fights of the 2018 Mid Season Invitational, where the LPL's Royal Never Give Up came back against the LCK's Kingzone DragonX. These back-to-back fights show what it looks like to be down in gold and structures, but use objective control to position and bait the enemy into your win condition. 34 minutes into the game, RNG are behind 6,000 gold, but Uzi is still up 100 CS over Prey, and he poses a very big threat in team fights. With their base cracked and hemorrhaging objectives, RNG's best bet is to force Kingzone into a team fight, where their composition can pick off those that trickle in by using multiple suppressions, and they can reset the fight with Ming's Janna. In order to force Kingzone to take a fight instead of focusing down RNG's base, RNG cede the Ocean Drake to Kingzone, in return for positioning on the Baron. Kingzone now have to fight RNG, or they risk losing the Baron and having Baron-empowered recalls cut off their siege of the base. Even though Kingzone are 6,000 gold ahead, RNG throw down the gauntlet and challenge Kingzone to a battle of mechanics, which they accept. Let's get into it. As Kingzone approach, RNG pull off the Baron and Let Me activates Call of the Forge God, which causes Khan to flash. This is now the biggest engage tool from RNG down, so they have to find another way to start this fight off. As Uzi's Kai'Sa attacks the Baron with the cover from Ming, Karsa runs around behind the Baron pit to look for a flank and pull onto BDD. Karsa flashes forward, but he's slowed by BDD's plasma fission and can't get in range to impale, and he is instantly collapsed on and dropped by Kingzone. RNG now find themselves in a 4v5. Xiaohu pops Shirelia's Reverie and is attempting to ulti Prey's Xayah, but Prey uses his Featherstorm to become untargetable as his team looks to reverse RNG's engage. Gorilla uses the quickness and grand entrance to try and lock up Xiaohu's Malzahar as he approaches. This should be an easy kill to secure due to Xiaohu not having flash, but Xiaohu still has his Void Shift passive on. Peanut's Undertow earlier just barely fell short, Prey's Featherstorm isn't pointed in the right direction to hit Xiaohu, and Gorilla didn't ignite earlier to remove the spell shield. With the spell shield still intact, Gorilla's engage does nothing to Xiaohu, who's immune to the charm and is able to walk right out of the Grand Entrance knockup area. It's important to note that the quickness can only affect a champion once per time it is cast, and having a spell shield absorb the quickness counts as it affecting the champion. So no matter how much Gorilla chases and hugs Xiaohu's Malzahar, he can no longer be charmed by that spell. And with Gorilla's overcommitment to the turn, he puts himself in a position where Uzi's Kai'Sa can unload on him. Gorilla eats all 12 missiles from Acathian Rain and is annihilated in just 4 basic attacks from Uzi. Remember, Uzi was attacking the Baron earlier, and this completely stacked up his Ginsu's Rageblade before the fight was even engaged, giving him 24% more bonus attack damage and making it so his passive goes off in just 3 to 4 hits instead of 5. As Gorilla falls, BDD and Prey have already committed to following up, but because Xiaohu was never charmed or knocked up, he's able to move far enough away and forces both BDD and Prey to flash in order to deal damage. Prey is now too far forward and begins retreating as Xiaohu drops. At this point, Uzi's Kai'Sa needs to be checked if Kingzone want to win this fight. The issue is that Uzi and Ming still have their ultimates and key summoner spells, whereas Kingzone barely have any left. Even though it's a 3v4, this is actually a favorable position for RNG, and they could potentially turn the whole fight around. The thing that prevents this becoming a complete disaster for Kingzone is Khan. Khan lands a Test of Spirit onto Uzi, and his whole team attacks the Spirit, killing it instantly and chunking Uzi to 1/4 HP as he retreats and takes a Plasma Fission from BDD. Uzi QSS's the slow from Test of Spirit and activates Supercharge to increase his movement speed as he runs away. As Kingzone rush forward to try and finish the wounded Uzi, this puts RNG in the perfect position. Uzi has extra attack speed from activating Supercharge, and he also has Runan's Hurricane, which will apply Kai'Sa's stacking Plasma passive to every champion hit by the bolts. As Kingzone clump up and focus Uzi, he gets to stack bolts across multiple members of Kingzone, and the longer he stays alive, the longer he pelts the enemy team. And knowing that they have to kill him quickly, Peanut's Olaf flashes forward and throws down Reckless Swing. But it isn't enough. And because they don't kill him fast enough, Uzi then gets a shield from Ming's Janna, heals off of Fleet Footwork, and uses his ultimate Killer Instinct to go from having just 200 HP to a temporary 1,800 health that needs to be burned through. Uzi finishes off Peanut, and in order to dodge the double tentacle slam headed his direction, Uzi flashes up towards the Baron. He then re-aggroes Baron with a basic attack, and he ends up dying because he's behind Baron and he gets stunned, which allows a tentacle to spawn and slam down on him, because remember, Uzi is still the vessel from the Test of Spirit earlier. But luckily for him, he's not alone in this fight. As much as Uzi is an incredible ADC who deserves an insane amount of praise for his skill, the tail end of this fight is where his supporting cast takes the main stage. Back when Kingzone were desperately trying to finish off Uzi, Let Me threw out a volcanic rupture in all of the chaos, as well as a Bellows Breath. Ming also snapcasts a Howling Gale, knocking up both BDD and Prey, and preventing Prey from avoiding Let Me's knockup off of his Searing Charge. And it's almost impossible to see in the middle of all of the confusion, but Prey uses his QSS towards the end of Ming's knockup, and before he is exhausted. So he essentially QSSs nothing in this moment, as he is too late for the knockup, too early for the exhaust, and he can't escape the knockup after QSSing because he doesn't have his flash from earlier when he used it to kill Xiaohu. The fight ends up going even in a 3-for-3, but key cooldowns were blown from both sides. And this is why we also have to look at the final pick. A fight that is an even trade at a glance can, in retrospect, be the catalyst for the game-winning moment. As everyone respawns and Prey makes it back to mid lane, RNG don't waste a second and look to punish his lack of cooldowns. Xiaohu hides against the wall in Fog of War. He then uses the active of Shirelia's Reverie as he rounds the corner and then flashes to get in range to ulti Prey, who doesn't cast Featherstorm in time. The suppression is chained off of by Let Me's Ornn ultimate, Karsa's Impale, and Uzi's Killer Instinct to close the distance, deal damage, and prevent Prey from ever acting after he misses his small window to cast his ultimate. As Prey dies, his QSS comes off of cooldown just 2 seconds later. BDD's Vel'Koz is now also in a bad position as the gap has been closed. RNG finish him off, push down the mid lane, and finish the game after being down 2 inhibitors, a Nexus turret, and 6,000 gold. Looking back, RNG were down in gold and down in structures, but they knew their only chance at winning was challenging Kingzone to a team fight around Baron, and the way they would get that is by trading objectives for positioning. RNG didn't sit back and let Kingzone dictate the pace of the game. RNG forced Kingzone to fight on their terms, and it's incredible that a teamfight that essentially begins with a 4v5 went the way of RNG. And it wasn't even a perfect team fight from RNG either. They essentially started off a 4v5. Uzi could have flashed the bottom side of the fight instead of up. He also could have not attacked the Baron and aggroed it, and he also had stopwatch that entire time. But this just shows how overwhelmingly ahead Uzi was on Kai'Sa, and how well he had been playing all game in order to be up 100 CS over his lane opponent, while his team is down in gold. The positioning that RNG had around Baron and the space that Xiaohu created afforded Uzi and Karsa the mistakes they made in the fight. And the capitalization immediately after the fight by Xiaohu and crew netted them the win. If RNG had hesitated or taken another moment to regroup and weren't ready for Prey's slight overextension, his QSS would have been available and the fight may not have gone as smoothly for RNG. But RNG set up the team fight, rallied around Uzi's gold, and executed, leading to a 3-1 victory over Kingzone DragonX, winning Uzi's first international title, and crowning Royal Never Give Up the champions of the the 2018 Mid Season Invitational.